Welcome to Inside British Royals. This is your exclusive look inside the world's most famous family. We are exploring the scandals, secrets, and power plays that define the modern monarchy. If you are new here, please do well to hit that subscribe button for more updates. A king unbothered, or a monarchy in deep crisis. That was the scene on March 9th, 2026, as King Charles III led his family into the grand halls of Westminster Abbey. The air wasn't filled with cheers. It was thick with angry, pointed chants. Just feet away, a crowd of protesters, their voices raw, screamed one question over and over. A question aimed right at the heart of the crown. And as the royals walked past, their faces like stone, they gave only silence. But that silence sent a message. The question is, what was it? Welcome back to our channel, where we unpack the dramas of the world's most famous family. Today, we're digging into a moment that will surely define King Charles' reign. On the morning of March 9th, the king led the senior royals to the annual Commonwealth Day service. This was their first big public event as a group since the seismic arrest of Prince Andrew, and you better believe the world was watching. Outside the ancient abbey, a storm was brewing. The anti-monarchy group Republic was demanding answers, and their signs left nothing to the imagination. Yet, the royal family put on a united, unbothered front, a wall of regal calm against a tide of public fury. Was this a masterclass in royal duty, a perfect display of the stiff upper lip that has defined the Windsors for generations? Or was it a fatal miscalculation, a deaf ear to legitimate public anger in an age where silence is often seen as guilt? Let's paint a picture for you. This was the largest gathering of senior royals since the crisis kicked off. King Charles and Queen Camilla arrived first, followed closely by the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate. Princess Anne and others rounded out the procession. Inside, 1,800 guests, including the UK Prime Minister and global dignitaries, were waiting to celebrate the unity of the Commonwealth. But outside, a very different kind of party was underway. The anti-monarchy group Republic, feeling emboldened by recent events, had set up shop directly across from the Abbey's Great West Door. Their now famous yellow flags and banners were a sharp slash of color against the gray London sky. Signs screaming "Not my king," "Abolish the monarchy," and "Down with the crown" were held high. Through megaphones, their chants echoed across the square, a relentless barrage aimed squarely at the arriving royals. Video from the day shows just how close this confrontation was. Protesters were mere feet from the royal cars, their boos and jeers impossible to ignore as the family stepped onto the pavement. And yet, the royal response was a masterclass in choreographed indifference. King Charles, in a sharp morning suit, gave a tight-lipped smile, his eyes locked straight ahead. Queen Camilla, right beside him, did the same. William and Kate, often seen as the monarchy's modern, approachable face, followed their lead, their gaze fixed on the Dean of Westminster who was there to greet them. Not a flicker of acknowledgement, not one sideways glance, no sign at all that they heard the fury being thrown at them. They just smiled, nodded to the church officials, and walked into the abbey, leaving the noise and the anger on the curb. It was a flawless performance of a classic royal strategy, dignified silence in the face of a crisis. So, what's fueling this new level of public anger? It all comes down to one name: Andrew. This was the first major Republican protest since the former Duke of York, now stripped of his titles and known simply as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, was arrested between February 19th and 23rd, 2026. The arrest was for suspected misconduct in public office, tied directly to his time as the UK's special trade envoy and his connections to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, a stain that just won't wash out for the monarchy. And that's the key to understanding the protesters' main chant, the one that cut through the noise with chilling clarity. Charles, what do you know? This wasn't just some generic anti-royal slogan. It was a direct, personal accusation aimed at the king himself. The protesters aren't just angry about Andrew anymore. They're angry about what they see as a cover-up, a culture of silence and secrecy within the institution. They're demanding to know what Charles, as Andrew's brother and now king, knew about his siblings' activities, and when he knew it. Graham Smith, the CEO of Republic, said this moment feels different, calling it transformative. He pointed out that even traditionally pro-royal media outlets are now starting to ask uncomfortable questions about what they knew when. The protest at Westminster Abbey wasn't just about abolishing the monarchy. It was about demanding accountability from the people at the very top. The anger has found a laser focus, and Prince Andrew is the catalyst that's allowing a wider critique of royal privilege and secrecy to finally hit the mainstream. In the face of this very personal and public attack, the royal family's strategy was obvious: put on a united front and carry on. The business-as-usual approach is a well-worn page in the royal playbook, meant to project stability and show that the institution is bigger than any single scandal. Their synchronized performance of ignoring the protesters was the public face of that strategy. But behind the scenes, something is shifting. A month before the Commonwealth Service, on February 9, 2026, a series of unprecedented statements dropped. First, Buckingham Palace, speaking for the King and Queen, expressed profound concern about the allegations against Andrew, stating they were ready to help the police and offering sympathies to the victims. Then, just hours later, Kensington Palace issued a separate statement for the Prince and Princess of Wales. William and Kate said they were deeply concerned by the continuing revelations and that their thoughts were with the victims. This was the first time the couple had ever said anything publicly about the Prince Andrew scandal. The move was widely seen as a deliberate play to distance the future king and queen from the toxic fallout of the Andrew affair. It suggests a new PR strategy, one that understands the old never complain, never explain motto might not be enough anymore. So while they put on a show of unity inside the magnificent Westminster Abbey, far from the jeers and yellow banners, King Charles gave his Commonwealth Day address. And this is where the irony gets really thick. He spoke of the great challenge and great possibility facing the world, like conflict and climate change. As head of the Commonwealth, a role he inherited from his mother but isn't hereditary, he praised the family of nations' shared spirit. He talked about unity, resilience, and stewardship, all meant to inspire the 56-member nations. But while Charles was celebrating a united global family, his own family was at the center of a crisis causing shockwaves across that same Commonwealth. This is no longer just a London problem. The Prince Andrew scandal is an international embarrassment, giving ammunition to Republican movements in the 15 Commonwealth realms where Charles is still head of state. Reports have surfaced that the governments of Australia, New Zealand, and Canada are privately backing calls for Andrew to be formally removed from the line of succession. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese reportedly told his UK counterpart that Andrew's presence in the line of succession is untenable and damaging the Crown's reputation in his country. This puts the King in a terrible spot. He is reportedly already talking with Commonwealth leaders about the future of the succession, even as he plans a state visit to the US. His speech inside the Abbey was about steering the Commonwealth through global challenges, but the biggest challenge to his authority is coming from inside his own palace. That dignified silent strategy is a tactic perfected by Queen Elizabeth II over her long and often bumpy reign. The idea was simple: engaging with criticism gives it power. Staying above the fray projects untouchable authority. For most of the 20th century, it worked. But looking at the scene on March 9th, you have to ask, is that playbook now dangerously out of date? In an age of smartphones and 24/7 news, silence isn't neutral anymore. To a growing number of people, silence doesn't look dignified, it looks dismissive. It doesn't read as strength, but as arrogance. The image of the King and the Prince of Wales striding past citizens who are demanding answers isn't necessarily one of regal composure. To many, it's an image of being profoundly out of touch. It feeds the exact story that groups like Republic are selling, that the royal family sees itself as above the people it's supposed to serve. And let's be clear about the allegations that got them here. Prince Andrew's arrest is for misconduct in public office while he was a UK trade envoy. The Epstein files have brought forward claims that aren't just about private mistakes, but about the potential abuse of a publicly funded job for personal gain and getting mixed up in a criminal enterprise. This is why the anger is so real. It cuts to the very heart of the deal between the monarchy and the people, who fund their lifestyle in exchange for duty and good conduct. The allegations against Andrew smash that deal to pieces. Stripping him of his Royal Highness title was a big step, but for many, it wasn't nearly enough. He's still Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a man born into incredible privilege who remains in the line of succession. The public sees this and asks why the rules that apply to everyone else don't seem to apply to him. By silently walking past protesters asking what did you know, King Charles risks cementing the idea that the royal family's first instinct is self-preservation, not public accountability. In ignoring the noise, he may have just made the message louder. Of course, there's another way to see the king's actions. For die-hard monarchy supporters, his performance at Westminster Abbey wasn't about indifference, it was about duty. In this view, King Charles wasn't ignoring the protesters. He was refusing to let them ruin a major state occasion. His main job on March 9th was to lead the nation and the Commonwealth in an important annual service. Stopping to engage with the shouting would have given the protest legitimacy and derailed the entire day. From a security and planning perspective, any change to the schedule would have been a disaster. Engaging a hostile crowd is just too unpredictable. By looking straight ahead, the king wasn't being dismissive. He was being disciplined. He was showing that the business of the crown goes on, no matter what scandals are swirling. It's the very definition of the keep calm and carry on spirit the monarchy tries to project. Supporters would also argue that the Commonwealth Day service was simply not the right time or place to address the allegations against his brother. There's an active police investigation, and any comment from the monarch could be seen as interfering with that legal process. The formal statements issued by the palaces in February were the correct way to handle it. A shouting match on the steps of the Abbey was not. In this light, the united front from Charles, Camilla, William, and Kate was a necessary show of strength. It was a message that the family and the monarchy will not be visibly broken by this crisis. It was a projection of resilience, meant to reassure the millions who see the royals as a symbol of stability. While protesters saw a disconnected monarch, supporters saw a king doing his duty, refusing to be rattled, and putting the institution above the personal chaos of the moment. The gap between those two views is huge, and it gets right to the heart of the monarchy's fight for relevance in the 21st century. Before we give our final thoughts, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our deep dives into the royal family. What happened on March 9th, 2026, was more than just a royal parade. It was a picture of a monarchy at a crossroads. On one side, you have a king and his heirs, representing centuries of tradition, duty, and a strategy of stone-cold silence. On the other, a loud and growing part of the public, armed with camera phones and real anger, demanding modern accountability. The chants about Prince Andrew were the trigger, but this tension has been building for years. King Charles led his family through the storm, showing a picture of unbreakable unity. But the questions shouted on a London street are now being echoed in government halls in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. This crisis isn't just about one disgraced prince anymore. It's about the conduct and the very legitimacy of the crown itself. The royal family has picked its strategy, a wall of dignified silence. They're betting this crisis, like so many others, will just fade away and the institution will survive. The protesters are betting that this time is different. That in an age of nonstop information, silence is no longer a shield, but an admission of guilt.